Good evening, Tom Lenaerts.
Good evening.
You are a professor in the Université Libre de Bruxelles, as well as part-time professor in Impe, and also expert in AI and bioinformatics.
Indeed.
Tom, this year's DISUMMIT edition is dedicated to the theme being human in the age of AI. You had a very interesting insight on what is actually to be human. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, of course, because in my presentation I came back to this question saying it's an old question. People have been asking themselves for a while, also in respect to the animal kingdom and to primates. And there was a very nice book that I was showing, actually tries to understand what is the difference between humans and primates. And there you clearly, this person clearly states that the big difference between humans and primates is the fact that we can imagine. As we can actually think about other worlds and actually adapt our actions in function of these other worlds that are maybe not happening or didn't happen yet, but we can actually base our actions on that. And I think the same is true for an AI. If an AI wants to express the same kind of intelligence as we do, it has to have the capacity to imagine or to think about other worlds and the consequences in those other worlds of actions it did not take. And this is called counterfactual reasoning.
Thank you. And do you think, is it possible to make AI more human? You even spoke about guilt as part of AI.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether it's important to make AI more human, but I think it's important that if we want to integrate AI in our society, it has to adapt to how we do social contacts and how we make relationships. And I mentioned in my presentation that if a system cannot reason in a counterfactual manner, it actually is not able to agree to a social contract or to be taken more, to actually give it more responsibility. So if we want our systems to participate with us in this world, we need to give them those capacities. And then we as humans, we have emotions and self-conscious emotions like guilt to deal with those situations and to make us interact with our world and behave properly in our world and commit and do social contracts and things like that. So the question is actually more, do we need to put it in a system to actually integrate it into our society? And this is the question that I was asking in my presentation.
Thank you very much. And we are conducting a survey,
yes,
asking the same three questions to all our guests. And so are the questions. And the first one is, Europe is considered to be way behind USA and China in terms of AI race. According to you, how can Brussels and Europe contribute to AI development?
So like I said, behind in what sense? Right? I understand that people are measuring themselves toward the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons of the world, but not Belgium, for instance, and Brussels does not have the same scale of companies. So it's maybe not necessary that they are trying to achieve the same thing because they don't have access to the same amount of data, this kind of things. But we can learn from what they have been doing, and we can adapt and see what we like and what we don't like and apply AI in the way that we think is much more interesting for a society like Belgium, where it's more based on small-scale companies, other more heterogeneous forms of interaction than what you would see in these huge kind of companies. What was the second part of the question?
So how, in your opinion, how can Brussels and Europe contribute to AI development?
So I think you should not forget that from an academic perspective, we are not that far behind. I mean, a lot of things that are very important now in AI research were actually established in Europe. Just to mention, deep learning started in a French lab. So I mean, in that sense, we are not that far behind. I think we should keep the spirit of innovation and trying to push the boundaries. And then this will happen a lot in Europe because we have these very different kinds of perspectives in different kinds of countries. And even in Brussels, Brussels is like a huge melting pot. I think it's the second most international city in the world. We should take this as an advantage and use that to actually make a difference in the way that we think AI should be done.
Okay, very good, thank you. Lately we hear a lot about the dangers of AI. Can you tell us what are the positive changes that can be brought by it?
So like I was saying, the dangers is in any kind of technology. And people should not only be afraid of AI, they should be afraid, and they should consider the potential harm that other technologies also can do. I mean, nobody asked the question whether a car could kill people when they invented to drive the car. I think the fear that people mostly have is because they see AI like they portrayed in the Hollywood movies, a thing that actually can overtake us. And this is not, in my opinion, true, but I think there's so many positive things, like for instance in medical research. I mean, the data is so complex and so big in that context that you need intelligent techniques to make sense of that data. You have to, of course, be conscious that you need to avoid biases, you need to make sure that whatever data you use is the right one to answer in a very global question, where does the disease come from and things like that, or you have to provide explanations. But I think there, for instance, it's a huge positive angle that you can actually have.
And in your opinion, what is the place of ethics in AI development, and how can AI contribute to gender, racial equality and social justice?
So there's a boutade, or how should I say, is that an AI system can only predict or tell you what it has been learned, and since humans are inherently biased, these AI systems will also be biased, in my opinion. We can try to clean this out, and like one of the colleagues was saying, by the fact that we now are all reflecting about ethics in AI, we are consciously dealing with this now. We are actually trying to avoid the problem of having a bias and of gender problems, all these kind of things. But these are the people that are thinking about it and developing it, not the people using it. And so I remain skeptical in the sense that even in the current society, facts are not accepted as truth. People giving facts are sometimes just pushed aside because they're not representing the gut feeling of somebody else, which is inherently biased. So I'm doubting that we can convince people in being ethical and using ethical AI by just showing them it. So it will be also an adaptation of the human race. It might work. Everybody's wearing these Fitbits nowadays, and suddenly everybody's standing up and walking. If you would have told this person like you get from me a machine and you will start walking more, you'll say, oh, you're silly. I will never do that. But people are doing this. They're starting to run because they have these things measuring and telling them to do this kind of stuff. It might happen with an AI also. I say, oh, you're not behaving properly. Maybe you should do it like this. Hopefully it works, but let's see what the future gives.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom Lenaerts.
You're welcome.